A young black woman in dress blues stands outside a hotel ballroom, holding an invitation she was told did not exist. The event coordinator crosses her arms. Service staff uses the side entrance. The woman says nothing. She holds out the card. Gold foil, embossed lettering, Lanford Heritage Society Annual Gala, +1. The coordinator glances at it and sniffs. I'm sure there's been a mix-up. Let me call someone. She does not call anyone. She takes the invitation from the woman's hand and tells a nearby security guard, low enough that she thinks no one else hears, get her out before the senator arrives. The senator is already there. He is the woman's father. But that is only the beginning, because what happens to that coordinator, to the Lanford Heritage Society, to this institution that has run its annual gala in Charleston, South Carolina for 63 consecutive years? Not one person standing in that marble lobby sees it coming. If you believe that the wrong person always ends up getting thanked in the end, stay with this. But first, you need to know who Kofi Asante Webb is, and you need to understand what she walked through before she ever walked into that building. I'm Cole. I cover the stories people file away. This one starts at a hotel entrance in Charleston and ends somewhere much harder to ignore. Kofi Asante Webb is 31 years old. She holds the rank of staff sergeant, recently separated from a special operations support unit after 8 years of service. 2 tours. 1 commendation she does not display. A prosthetic left ring finger she lost to a door hinge in a forward operating base in the Horn of Africa, which she describes, when asked, as embarrassing rather than heroic. She works now as a logistics coordinator for a nonprofit that builds water infrastructure in underserved municipalities. She lives alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in North Charleston with a houseplant named Brigadier that she waters every Tuesday. The interesting part is not the commendation. The interesting part is Hartwell, Georgia, a 2-bedroom house with a carport that flooded every spring. A mother named Celestine, who taught 7th grade science and drove 40 minutes each way because the closer school wouldn't hire her. A father named Senator Aldous Webb, who was not a senator then. He was a paralegal. He worked downtown in a firm that handled other people's property disputes and came home smelling of photocopier toner and old coffee. Kofi grew up knowing 2 things simultaneously: that she was loved completely, and that the world outside her front door operated on a different set of rules. The summer she turned 12, she and her mother went to a hotel pool in Augusta while her father attended a continuing education seminar. A woman at the pool chairs asked Celestine pleasantly which family she was working for. Celestine smiled. She said, "My own." The woman did not apologize. She picked up her magazine. Kofi never forgot the way her mother's jaw moved after that, like she was choosing, very carefully, what not to say. 19 years later, Kofi is standing outside a ballroom in Charleston, and a woman is taking her invitation. Let us rewind 40 minutes. The Lanford Heritage Society was founded in 1961. It hosts an annual gala each October at the Meridian Charleston, a hotel with a lobby that smells like gardenias and money. The event raises funds for what the society describes on its website as preserving the cultural fabric of the Lowcountry. The gala's guest list runs to 400. Politicians, developers, old family names printed in italic on place cards. The Society's events director, Margot Stiles, 54, has managed the gala for 11 consecutive years. She calls what she does curation. What it means, practically, is this. She walks the lobby before the doors open and makes decisions about who moves through easily and who gets asked for documentation 3 times. Senator Aldous Webb, 70, has attended this gala for the past 6 years. He represents South Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. He sits on the Senate Appropriations Committee. The Lanford Heritage Society receives a federal historic preservation grant that routes through his office. Margot Stiles knows this. She has shaken his hand at this event for 6 years. What Margot Stiles did not do was read the RSVP list carefully enough to notice that the senator's +1 this year is not his wife, who is visiting her sister in Savannah, but his daughter, Kofi, who came in from North Charleston on a Thursday evening in dress blues because her father asked her to, specifically because he wanted to introduce her to 3 people in that room who work in infrastructure policy. Kofi arrives alone because her father is already inside, having been escorted in through a separate entrance 30 minutes earlier for a pre-event briefing. She walks to the main doors at 7:15. She is in uniform. She is carrying the gold foil invitation. She is early. Margot Steele sees her from across the lobby. She excuses herself from a conversation and crosses 30 feet of marble floor. You already know the first words. Service staff uses the side entrance. But Margot does not stop there. When Kofi produces the invitation, Margot takes it, holds it at arm's length as though assessing a counterfeit, and says, "These are easily duplicated. I'll need to verify this with the host." She does not return the card. She signals to a security guard named Fletcher Osee, who will later file his own written account of the evening, and says, quietly but not quietly enough, "Hold her here. I don't want a scene when Senator Webb arrives." Kofi does not raise her voice. She says, "He's already arrived." Margot blinks. "I beg your pardon?" "Senator Webb. My father. He arrived at 6:45. He's in the pre-event room." The silence that follows lasts 4 seconds. A man standing near the coat check, waiting for his ticket, watches this exchange. He is a Charleston Post and Courier reporter named Desmond Aiken, there to cover the gala for the weekend lifestyle section. He is not recording. He is listening. And he has very good recall. Margot Stiles says, "I'll still need to verify." She takes a step toward the interior doors. Fletcher Osee does not move to stop Kofi. He stands beside her, and later he will say that he recognized immediately that something was wrong. Not with Kofi, but with the situation. He will say that he has worked events at the Meridian for 4 years, and that the coordinator's behavior did not match any written protocol he had been trained on. Senator Aldous Webb walks out of the pre-event room at 7:22, looking for his daughter. He sees her standing in the lobby. He sees Margot Stiles holding his daughter's invitation. He does not raise his voice either. He walks to where Margot is standing and says, quietly, "That's my daughter's invitation. I'd like it back." Margot hands it over. Her face has gone the color of the marble floor. The senator touches Kofi's shoulder once. He says, "Lo, you okay?" Kofi says, "Fine." They walk in together. The gala continues. But the lobby is not the same room it was 7 minutes ago, and something in Margot Stiles' posture for the rest of the evening makes it clear that she knows it too. Desmond Aiken goes home and writes 1,200 words. He files them to his editor at 10:45. The headline, when it runs Sunday morning, "Senator's daughter, combat veteran, held at gala door. Service staff uses the side entrance." By noon, the story has been picked up by 3 regional outlets. By Monday, it is national. The Lanford Heritage Society releases a statement Monday afternoon. 83 words. "We deeply regret any miscommunication that occurred at the entrance to our annual event. The Lanford Heritage Society welcomes all guests of our honorees and is reviewing our front-of-house procedures to ensure all attendees are greeted appropriately." No name, no specific acknowledgement, no apology addressed to Kofi. The word miscommunication doing the work of an entire explanation. Margot Stiles issues a separate statement through a publicist. Ms. Stiles was acting in accordance with standard event security protocols and did not intend to cause offense. In the context of a high-security event, additional verification is sometimes required. The statement does not explain why a gold foil invitation and a military uniform failed to satisfy those protocols. It does not explain why the invitation was confiscated rather than copied or checked against the list. Kofi Asante Webb does not issue a statement. She goes back to work. She sends 3 emails about a pipeline project in rural Alabama. She waters Brigadier. She makes lunch. She does not give an interview. Senator Webb, on the other hand, gives one. On Tuesday morning, On a C-SPAN segment that was booked 2 weeks ago for an unrelated infrastructure discussion, a reporter asks him about his daughter. The senator pauses. He says, "My daughter served 8 years. She came home with a commendation and one less finger and more discipline than anyone I know. She was invited to that room. She belonged in that room. The only thing that stopped her at the door was what she looked like." He pauses again. "I want to be clear. I am not angry at a hotel coordinator. I am asking a different question. Why does that decision, the one made in 45 seconds in a marble lobby, why does it still feel automatic to someone in that position?" That's not a question about one person. That's a question about a room. That quote travels farther than the headline. It is shared independently, without context, by people who have never heard of the Lanford Heritage Society. It is printed on a sign outside a church in Columbia the following Sunday, and in the background, quiet as a footstep, a researcher named Elsa Pruitt, 39, who covers nonprofit governance for a policy watchdog organization called Civic Ledger, has just requested documents from the South Carolina Secretary of State's office. She has been looking at the Lanford Heritage Society for 7 months. The hotel lobby story is not why she started, but it is why she is finishing. Elsa Pruitt spent 6 years as a public defender before she pivoted to investigative policy work. She left the law because she wanted to understand the architecture of unfairness rather than just respond to its outcomes. She joined Civic Ledger in 2021 and built a reputation for reports that no foundation wanted published until they couldn't be ignored. Elsa has been examining the Lanford Heritage Society's federal grant history since March. A source inside a Low-Country Preservation Coalition told her, off the record, that society leadership had been steering grant referrals toward a small cluster of connected applicants while rejecting geographically similar projects from communities with higher proportions of Black and Latino residents. Elsa filed a records request for the Society's grant recommendation logs and board correspondence. The documents arrive the week after the hotel story breaks. She builds a spreadsheet. Column A, grant applicant. Column B, location. Column C, community demographics. Column D, recommendation. Column E, outcome. 6 years of federal historic preservation grant referrals, totaling $4.3 million in recommended disbursements. Of the 48 applicants in majority Black or majority Latino zip codes, 41 received no recommendation. 37 were ultimately denied funding. The denial rate, 85%. For majority white applicant communities over the same period, the denial rate is 14%. Elsa reads the numbers twice. She runs a regression. The gap does not close for income level, property age, or documentation quality. She digs into the individual recommendation letters. The rejections all share a phrase. The committee finds the applicant's preservation plan insufficiently aligned with regional heritage priorities. No elaboration. No definition of regional heritage. No appeal pathway. The letters are form-generated. Same font. Same closing. Only the address changes. Elsa cross-references the rejected applicants. Among the 41 non-recommended projects in majority Black communities, a 19th-century AME church, one of the oldest continuously operating congregations in the Lowcountry, a Gula Geechee farmstead actively maintained by the same family for 4 generations, a freedmen's school building, documented and structurally sound, that a local historical society had been trying to protect for 9 years. The Regional Heritage Priorities Committee found every one of them misaligned. That committee is chaired by the Lanford Heritage Society's grants director, a man named Pemberton Cross, 68, who has held the position for 14 years. His signature appears on every rejection letter. He is also, the board minutes reflect, the brother-in-law of the Society's president, Roland Thayer. Elsa pulls the thread further. The federal grant money flows through a cooperative agreement with the South Carolina State Historic Preservation Office. which requires annual compliance reports demonstrating equitable community access. The Lanford Heritage Society has filed these reports each year for 6 years. Elsa obtains copies. The reports describe outreach programs, community engagement workshops, and partnership initiatives with underserved neighborhoods. She searches for documentation of any of these programs in the Society's own event calendar, press releases, and local news archives. She finds none. Not one documented workshop. Not one event record. Not one partnership agreement with any community-based organization outside the Society's existing membership network. The programs described in 6 years of federal compliance reports do not appear to exist anywhere outside the reports themselves. Elsa calls the State Historic Preservation Office and asks for any third-party verification of the Lanford Heritage Society's reported community access programs. There is a long pause on the line. The program officer says, "We rely on self-reported data from grantees." Elsa writes that down. She calls a woman named Adeline Gaines, 73, whose family has spent a decade trying to secure preservation funding for the AME Church. Adeline has never heard of a Lanford Heritage Society outreach workshop. She has never been contacted by the Society. She has attended their public gala twice as a guest of a member. Both times, she says, she was asked for her invitation at the door. Both times. Elsa publishes her findings in a 4-part series for Civic Ledger. Part 1, the grant data. Part 2, the rejection letters. Part 3, the phantom compliance reports. Part 4, the stories of the 41 rejected projects. The Society's response, delivered through a retained communications firm, is 2 sentences. The Lanford Heritage Society follows all applicable federal guidelines in its grant recommendation process. We reject any characterization of our work as discriminatory. 2 sentences, 41 sites, a Gullah Geechee farmstead, an AME church that has been standing since 1871. A compliance report describing workshops that no one attended because they never happened. If you have ever watched a form letter close a door that a building has been holding open for 150 years, drop 1 word in the comments. Just 1. We'll understand. But the Society is not finished. And the next document that arrives at Senator Webb's office is not a gala invitation. 6 days after Elsa's series publishes, the Lanford Heritage Society's legal counsel sends letters to 3 parties: Senator Webb's Senate office, Civic Ledger's editorial director, Elsa Pruitt personally. Each letter runs 4 pages. The central claim, that Elsa's reporting misrepresents the Society's selection criteria, constitutes defamatory characterization of a private nonprofit, and has caused material harm to the organization's reputation and fundraising capacity. Requested remedies include a full retraction, removal of all published materials, and an unspecified damages figure described as to be determined pending full financial assessment. Senator Webb reads his letter at his desk in Washington. He folds it. He puts it in a drawer. His chief of staff sends a 1-line response. The senator declines to retract factual reporting. Elsa's editor at Civic Ledger, a woman named Priya, who has run the organization for 9 years and once went to court over a FOIA request in 3 different states simultaneously, sends no response at all. She publishes a 5th article, a summary of the legal threat itself, including the specific claims made, noting that none of them identify a factual error. Elsa keeps reporting. But pressure is coming from other directions. A cluster of social media accounts, most of them less than 2 weeks old, begins posting about Kofi Asante Webb. The posts share a consistent message that the hotel incident was orchestrated, that Kofi arrived at the wrong entrance deliberately to create a scene, that her father's office had tipped a reporter in advance. One account posts a fabricated screenshot suggesting a text message exchange between Kofi and Desmond Aiken 3 hours before the gala. Another claims the dress blues were staged, that Kofi had not worn her uniform to any prior public event in the past year. The posts gain traction in the parts of the internet that specialize in the satisfaction of discovering that the victim was actually the perpetrator. Kofi's phone fills with notifications she does not open. Her co-workers at the nonprofit ask careful, gentle questions she answers briefly. She keeps working on the Alabama pipeline report. She does not respond publicly. But the campaign reaches her father. On a Thursday afternoon, a junior staffer brings Senator Webb a printed summary of the social media activity. He reads it standing up. He puts it face down on the conference table. He calls Kofi that evening. She answers on the third ring. He asks how she is. She says fine. He asks if she has seen what is circulating online. She says some of it. There is a pause. Then she says, "Dad, I've been in situations where someone was actually trying to kill me. Some guys with fake Twitter accounts isn't really registering." He laughs. It is a tired laugh, the kind that means he is not worried about her. He knows she is fine. He is worried about what a 9-year-old or a 19-year-old watching this conversation get conducted in public will take from it. He is worried about the lesson the noise teaches. He says, I know you're okay." After the call, he sits at his desk in the Senate office building. The city is audible 16 floors down. He pulls a pad of paper toward him and writes 3 words. He stares at them. He crosses them out. He writes 3 different ones. It is 11 p.m. before he puts the pad down. There is a question he keeps returning to. Not about the society, not about the legal threat, not about the anonymous accounts. A simpler one. The one his daughter did not ask, but that her 12-year-old self might have. The one her mother knew enough not to ask out loud in Augusta 19 years ago. The one that is, in the end, always the same question, no matter who is asking it. What do I have to carry to be allowed in the room? Uniform, invitation, name, father's name, father's title, his seat on the appropriations committee, his signature on the grant that funds the lobby you're standing in. Is that enough? Is that ever enough? He does not sleep well. Meanwhile, Adeline Gaines has been making phone calls of her own. She contacts the 23 families connected to the 41 rejected preservation projects and asks them a straightforward question. Would you be willing to talk to a civil rights attorney? 21 of them say yes. The attorney's name is Renata Osei Kufor. She is 44 years old. She runs a small practice in Columbia, South Carolina, with 2 associates and 1 paralegal, and she has spent 15 years bringing discrimination claims against institutions that assume their paperwork is too boring to read. She does not seek publicity. She seeks the moment when the paper trail meets a standard of evidence that a federal judge cannot set aside. Renata reviews Elsa's 4-part series. She reviews the grant data. She reviews the compliance reports. She spends 2 days reading rejection letters. Then, she files a complaint with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division and with the federal grant administrator overseeing the cooperative agreement. The complaint alleges that the Lanford Heritage Society, while operating as a federal grant intermediary, systematically steered preservation funding away from majority Black communities, filed false compliance reports certifying community access programs that did not exist, and operated in violation of the non-discrimination provisions attached to its cooperative agreement with the federal government. She attaches the grant data. She attaches the rejection letters. She attaches Elsa's documentation of the phantom programs. She attaches statements from 21 families. And then she calls Adeline Gaines to tell her it is filed. Adeline sits in the kitchen of the farmstead her family has maintained for 4 generations, says, "About time." The federal grant administrator acknowledges receipt of the complaint within 72 hours. The cooperative agreement is placed under administrative review. The Lanford Heritage Society's access to new federal referral funds is suspended pending investigation. $4.3 million in grant influence. Frozen. The society calls it politically motivated. Their attorney states that the complaint is a direct result of the senator's personal animus following a private event incident. He does not address the grant data. He does not address the phantom compliance reports. He does not address the 21 families. He does not address the AME church that has been standing since 1871. Back in North Charleston, Kofi Asante-Webb goes to work. She finalizes the Alabama pipeline report. She attends a site visit in Selma. She comes home. She waters Brigadier. On a Sunday, her father calls again. He says the DOJ has assigned a staff attorney to the complaint. He says Renata O.C. Kaffour's filing is being taken seriously. He says he has been asked to provide a personal statement, which he intends to give. He says her name is going to come up in it, only briefly, only as context. Kofi says, use it however it helps. Her father pauses. Then he says something he has not said out loud since Hartwell, Georgia, since the pool in Augusta, since the morning she left for basic training with a bag over her shoulder and did not look back. You've always been the clearest person I know. She doesn't say anything for a second. Then she says, you taught me that. They stay on the line together for a while without talking much. The kind of quiet that means everything has been said already, and neither person is in a hurry to leave it. 3 weeks after the federal complaint is filed, the Lanford Heritage Society's Board of Directors meets in emergency session. The meeting runs 4 hours. Pemberton Cross, the grants director, submits his resignation before the session ends. Roland Thayer, the Society's president, announces that he will not seek another term when his current one expires in December. The board votes to engage an independent auditor to review 6 years of grant recommendations and compliance reporting. The Society's legal team quietly withdraws the defamation letters. No retraction requested, no public announcement. The letters simply cease to exist as active demands. Civic Ledger keeps the articles up. At the federal level, the DOJ review expands. A staff attorney requests records from 4 other heritage organizations in the Southeast that operate under similar cooperative agreements. It is, as these things go, a quiet expansion. 1 email thread, 1 records request, 1 folder, but Elsa Pruitt is watching. She publishes a short note about it. It gets read. Ottiline Gaines is contacted by a federal program officer who asks what documentation the AME Church Preservation Project has on file. Ottiline has kept every document for 9 years. She sends 47 pages. The farmstead application is reopened for review. Senator Webb gives his personal statement to the DOJ in a room with 2 staff attorneys and a court reporter. He does not mention Margot Stiles by name. He does not describe the lobby in detail. He talks about the grant data, the compliance reports, the families, and what the question of belonging costs when the answer keeps being not yet. He talks for 1 hour and 20 minutes. When he finishes, he answers 3 questions. Then he stands, shakes hands, and walks out into a hallway that smells like floor wax and recycled air, and he thinks for a moment about a pool in Augusta and a woman choosing very carefully what not to say. He thinks about what his daughter carries, what she has always carried. The invitation was never the issue. The question was always whether the person at the door intended to read it. He takes the elevator down. He walks out into the afternoon. In North Charleston, Kofi finishes the Alabama report. Her director tells her it is the clearest infrastructure analysis the organization has produced in 3 years. She says thank you, and she means it, and she thinks about something her father said a long time ago, that the work that gets done in the background is not invisible. It is just patient. It waits for the room to catch up. She looks at Brigadier. She makes a note to water it Tuesday. She does not need a ballroom to know where she belongs. She has known that for a very long time. What she needed, what those 21 families needed, what Ottiline Gaines needed, was for the institution to stop pretending that the door was open while keeping a hand on the latch. The hand is off the latch now. That is not justice in full. It is not a resolution that fits in a headline. It is the beginning of a longer accounting, an auditor's spreadsheet, a federal review, a paralegal named Ottiline who kept 47 pages of documents for 9 years because she knew one day someone would finally ask for them. The Amy Church is still standing. It has been standing since 1871. It was standing before the Lanford Heritage Society was founded. It was standing while grant cycles came and went, and compliance reports described workshops that never happened. It will be standing when the accounting is done. That is how the work actually moves. Not in one evening, not in one lobby, not in one 38-second video or one Sunday morning headline. In paperwork kept past the point of hope, in a researcher who reads the regression twice, in an attorney who files the complaint on a Tuesday and then calls the family to say it's done, in a daughter who said use it however it helps and went back to work. If this reached something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like the video, subscribe to Cole Uncovers, and leave a comment, 1 word or 100, about the door you were told was open. We read all of them.